In our society, there are three sectors: the public, the private, and the nonprofit. And it's that third sector, the nonprofit sector, that we're here to talk about today. My guests are Amy Noe and Jay Conrad with the Richmond Community Orchestra. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's start with the history. I know you've been around for a while now, but I think you're relatively still new when folks think about music in our community. So share with us a little the background, how you got started, why you got started.
That's your.
I can take that.
You were there.
Okay, I was there. We started in 2008. This actually grew out of a conversation in the Richmond Civic Theater Pit Orchestra with a couple of us that have done that for a while, and we talked about wanting to be able to play music together more often than just for the musicals that come up on the Richmond Civic Theater stage. So we got a group of people together, started brainstorming interested parties, trying to think about directors and other folks. So we ended up having some organizational meetings there in 2008. Ended up finding that Jay was interested in becoming our music director, so we brought him on board, and through a series of those meetings created a nonprofit organization and had our first rehearsal in November of 2008 is when that first started. I believe we had 14 musicians on the Goddard Auditorium stage on Earlham College campus for that first rehearsal, and we've been going ever since.
So when you started it, did you picture that 6 years later that you would be performing several concerts a year and playing with smaller groups of these musicians, or did it start mostly just to have fun and play your instruments?
Well, I think most of them that are in there, they're there because they enjoy playing instruments. Obviously, as the director, you know, my vision from the start was this is going to be a performing group. And I think we surprised a lot of people that first year that we were, you know, successful in giving a concert, I think a full concert in March of 2009 then.
Yes.
And roughly 45 musicians. And even though we've had a lot of people change that come in and play for a while and then move, or high school kids that have gone on to college, the performing core has stayed around 45. So, you know, we have probably done more concerts than people expected. We try to do 4 public concerts a year at Goddard Auditorium on Earlham's campus. This year, the first concert will be November 3rd, I believe, the first Sunday afternoon in November. And then we'll do a holiday concert at the end of the month. And then we'll do 2 more concerts in March and May. But we end up doing a lot of other concerts throughout the year. This past year, we started in September. Of all things, we did a flash mob at the Depot District, and we did the finale to Beethoven's Ninth, and we did that with chorus and orchestra. We were aided by the Earlham College Orchestra and a few of the Earlham choirs, and the Eaton Area Community Chorus out of Eaton, Ohio, which I direct also. So that's why they're always kind of available, because I tell them to show up. So anyway, so we did that. We did our regular concerts this past year. We did a concert at Wernley for the residents there. We played a concert down in the Gorge for the Shakespeare Festival. We had other things. Plus, we have a small group that plays at least 2 or 3 times a year. We do the fundraiser out at the Cope Environmental Center. That's coming up at the end of this month that we're doing. So we keep pretty busy.
Well, it sounds like it. Did I understand you right? You've got 45 volunteers that participate in this. That's amazing.
And it's pretty well balanced. I mean, we have, you know, all the instrumentation of a symphony. You know, we have, you know, the string section and the woodwinds and the brass and you know. And we've drawn a lot of people that I used to joke that we're not amateurs, we're just professionals that don't get paid. Because a lot of the people that we have in our organization were professional musicians at one time, either teachers or performers. And we have people from, I think, age 85 down to about age 15. So we get a wide range of things. We get a wide range of occupations. We even let lawyers play with us if they behave. And that's Amy. That's right. But anyway, we just have a lot of fun.
Well, it sounds like it. I'm curious, where does a group that size find practice space?
Well, we've been very fortunate. Our very first year, Earlham College donated the use of Goddard Auditorium. So we rehearse every Monday evening. We take some breaks in December. We take some breaks in summer, although Jay keeps creeping us into concert schedules during the summertime. But for the most part, we rehearse on Monday evenings. Every Monday we get together, and Earlham, the first year, donated the use of Goddard Auditorium to us so that we could get started, and now we continue to use that at a very reasonable cost, thanks to Earlham College, they've been very generous to let us be there. So that's where we're able to rehearse, and we're going to be able to continue to do that in the future. So it's exciting.
They're a good community partner.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think they reach out to groups when they see that they can be of assistance.
Right.
Much appreciated. So all of the folks that are musicians are also volunteers, is that correct?
Right.
Yes.
Nobody is paid in the Richmond Community Orchestra.
Strictly play for the love of music.
Yes.
Right. Right.
So if there are folks out there that are maybe interested in joining the orchestra, are you looking for any particular areas? Do you need drummers, or are there areas that you'd really like to discuss and maybe reach out to folks that have an interest in volunteering?
Well, we always are looking for string players. We have a pretty good number of violinists, but as we go, to the viola, which is kind of a violin on steroids, it's a little bigger, and there aren't as many people that play that. And sometimes we have some of our players who are violinists play on the viola parts and things like that. And then cellos, we're pretty good shape there. String bass, we'd like to have a couple other people. French horns are always we're looking for. We had 3 last year that were seniors in high school, and they all graduated. And but we generally can figure out how to use about anybody. We have a few sections that we are kind of, on the overflow of how many we really want, and but we make it work somehow. I mean, if we have to have them help play bass drum or something, or sit out this number or something like that, we do that. But I'd say, really, French horns and strings are really the areas we're always looking for people.
And we're also very fortunate because Jay, who's very modest, can do his own arranging and even composing. So when there's instrumentation that we may not be able to cover, Jay is always able to figure out a way to fill the gaps there because of the talents he has in arranging and composing. So we're very fortunate there as well.
And we try to let everyone participate. I mean, we don't say, "Oh, I'm sorry, that's not an orchestral instrument," because we have an alto saxophone player, and a lot of times she helps strengthen the French horn section and things like that. Sure. But we play almost anything. I mean, we do Bach violin concertos. We do 20th century orchestral music, and we do big band music. A lot of times in the last few summers, we have played out at the Gar farm for the 4th of July, and we get Donna Geddes with the Gennett Mansion. She has sung with us, and some other folks. And we get some of the classic big band music out. And so then we can use our saxophones and things like that. And we have some people that will even double on saxophone if we ask them to.
Aha!
So lots of talent.
Now the secret's out.
Yes.
Right? We're needing to wrap up the program, but I want to make sure that we focus on how this organization is funded. Do you accept donations from the community, grants?
Absolutely.
How do you raise the money to carry on this program?
Well, we certainly do ask for donations. We're a 501c3, so any donations are tax deductible. We have received a grant through the Wayne County Foundation to help fund some of our initiatives. But mostly it's through private donations. We don't have a regular grant source. We don't charge for our concerts at all. We do ask that people who come, if they feel the need, if they would like to give money on the way out, we certainly have people there ready and willing to take money. So we accept donations at concerts. We accept larger donations. We have some very generous sponsors. And that's pretty much how we are funded. And we've managed to keep the doors open on a shoestring. I think we started with a $300 budget.
And music is not inexpensive for a 45-piece orchestra.
And I spent $958 last week on new music. You know, that should last us through the year, but we try to budget about $300 of new music. And we've had, you know, Richmond High School has been generous in letting us borrow stuff. Wright State in Dayton, Earlham College has loaned us some money. But one thing I think we really want to mention is the, Amy said initiatives, and we have something we call the String Initiative. And that's a program I think is just really important, and it is to bring the education of how to play a string instrument to as many young people as we can. The last 2 years we have had a summer program with the Girls Inc. here in town, and had some young ladies learn how to play violin, have an instructor that teaches them. For those summer sessions, there's no charge for the students that want to be involved. We cover that. If they continue through the year, then they have to pay for their instrument, but we are covering the cost of the instructor at this point. And we want to expand that. One thing we need to do is find more string teachers, but we want to expand that to girls and boys clubs here in Richmond. They want us to go in there. And eventually I would like to spread it into Preble County across the state line, because I'm from Eaton. So anyway, I just think that's such an important thing that we're doing now. And because right now Richmond High School is the only high school that has a string program.
So you're not only filling a need for the folks that want to play their instruments, you're giving them an outlet, but you're also reaching out to the youth and encouraging that love of music and instrumentation in our community. So we're out of time, but I wanted to thank you for being here today and remind folks, if they're interested, you need volunteer musicians, volunteer teachers, and cash, right?
That's right.
And we have a website. If you just go to Richmond Community Orchestra, I think .org.
I think it's rcoindiana.org. rcoindiana.org.
Super.
You'll find it. You'll find it.
All right. Well, thank you both for being here today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And we'll be right back. Welcome back to the Third Sector. I have with me now David Fulton with the Starr Gennett Foundation. Welcome to the studios.
Thank you, Rachel. Glad to be here.
Happy to have you. Let's start by telling folks what the Starr Gennett Foundation is.
The Starr Gennett Foundation was created in 1991 by a group of citizens here who wanted to restore Richmond's appreciation of its wonderful legacy in music and recording, in the recording industry, which is a theme which we can go into further later, that legacy. But the mission of the foundation is to promote and preserve and to celebrate the legacy of Gennett Records and the Starr Piano Company. They were one industry. Starr Piano was created back in the 1870s, but became Starr in the 1890s and continued to exist into the 1940s. They created a division for recording purposes back in 19-teens, And that was Gennett Records, and Gennett Records became a very important recording company for American music of all genres. And we can talk about that too if we'd like. But in any case, the record company pretty much stopped recording in about 1934. Since it's such an important part of America's musical and industrial heritage, we felt, or they felt at the time in 1991, that we needed to have a structure with which we could then promote, celebrate, and preserve that legacy. And it has continued till this day in lots of different ways. So that's brief background.
Well, let's just jump right into it.
Right, okay.
Why is this so important? What happened that makes this such an important part of America's history?
American music now dominates the world. I don't think there's any question about that. And when I say American music, what do we mean? Jazz. We mean country. We mean popular. By popular, we know what pop music is today, but back in the 20s, they had popular music then. Gospel. And Gennett Records recorded, primarily in the 1920s, the best and earliest musicians in those various genres. So, for example, in jazz, you had Bix Beiderbecke recording his first recordings here in Richmond. Hoagy Carmichael recording his first. In terms of I'll get the words out here in a minute. In terms of blues, for example, we had some of the very first blues artists, like Big Bill Broonzy, who is going to be featured, by the way, in this year's Walk of Fame Festival, which is September 12th to 14th. Really all over Richmond. That's Big Bill Broonzy. People like in the gospel field. Some of the very famous early gospel artists started to record here when there wasn't any such recording of gospel music in the past. So these people were recorded in Richmond by Gennett Studios. Their records were sent and purchased all over the country. I think it was in 1922 or 23, Gennett Records produced 3 million copies of their recordings all over the country. People who had not had any access to these various genres now could hear them on their own photographs, which, by the way, Starr Piano also made. We can go into that in a lot of ways, but the significance of it is that Gennett Records was one of the most important recording studios in spreading an awareness and an appreciation of American genres of music, first throughout this country, and then, as we all know, throughout the world.
Well, it sounds really impressive to me, 2 to 3 million records.
Back then.
Yes, in the 20s.
In the 20s.
Nearly
That's right.
100 years ago. It is amazing.
Gennett was interesting because they had a distribution network throughout the country for their pianos, which is what they were known for, right? Starr Piano. And so they used that, going through various stages of what we now call home entertainment systems, to the point where they were making their own recordings and distributing their records. And then they also connected with Sears and Montgomery Ward's and other catalog businesses. So people anywhere in the country who happened to have a Sears catalog could order their records.
So very much a pioneering company.
Oh, absolutely. The Gennetts were incredible entrepreneurs. And I mean, they were incredible entrepreneurs.
So tell us more about the organization. It was founded to preserve this history. What are some of the things that you're doing to bring awareness and, as you said, move this forward? Well,
let's take each one of the three items. Preserve. We have, for example, a memorandum of understanding with the Archives of Traditional Music in Bloomington, part of IU. We do not have the capacity to keep all the records that we are given or that we come across in one way or the other. They have the capacity to curate them. They have the capacity to make them available. And they have the capacity to do the cataloging. We have a part-time office person who runs our affairs. And so the relationship with Bloomington, the Archives of Traditional Music, is really important. They also have, on their own, a Hoagy Carmichael collection, which is very significant. And so the Gennett record collection fits in nicely with that. And as a result, we have now about 317, I think it is, recordings, Gennett recordings, that are available at either Bloomington or here at IU East. If anybody wants to see that catalog, they can come here and talk to the librarians, and they can set them up on the computers, and it's available to them. We have given them another 900, possibly will rise to 1,400 more, which should be digitized and put on the same collection. So as you can imagine, that's a vast array of various Gennett recordings of these different genres. And it's not just music. There's ethnic, for example. There's sound effects. That's one of the last things the Gennetts did, was to do sound effects for Hollywood movies. That's the preserve part. We also have a relationship with Morrison Reeves Library to keep our paper collection of documents. Again, we have a little office in the foundation and really not a lot of space for all of that stuff. Then the promoting side, we have concerts, the Gennett Legacy concerts, and a gospel series now, the purpose of which is to make sure that people are aware of the current activities in these various genres. And so we've had over the years, some wonderful jazz musicians. I think you've been to one or two of the concerts.
Maybe a couple.
Yeah, I hope. And if not, I'll get to you with more tickets.
Okay.
So that's one of the ways we promote. As far as celebrating is concerned, that's, for example, the Walk of Fame, which is coming up on September 12th and 13th and 14th of this next month, in which we will have various activities all over Richmond. Oh, my heavens, I forgot one of the most important things, and that is in the area of preservation is our Walk of Fame. That was one of the major projects that the foundation undertook several years ago. The idea that we would have something in Richmond that people could go to without building a new building or a new museum, which we heard very clearly was not in the cards. And so we settled on the Walk of Fame, and the Walk of Fame down in the gorge on the site of the Starr Piano Company now includes 29 of these recording artists, and it's a very beautiful display. If anybody's not been down there, they need to go take a look at the ceramic and bronze medallions that are placed in the walk. Because of the construction that's about to start down there, we have not been able to put new ones in there, and not until that's all taken care of. So we have actually about 33, and a 34th is going to be added this year. We try to add at least one a year. And all of this is funded by donations by various people. I have to say that the Gennett family, which is represented by the granddaughter of one of the founders, one of the sons of the founder, I should say, lives in Fort Wayne, is on our board of directors. That's Linda Gennett Ermshire. And then the California branch of the family, particularly Laurel Martin, have been very, very helpful in supporting us all this time since 1991, actually since the 80s. So what was your question? I know it had something to do with...
I think you answered it.
Yeah, I was talking about the Walk of Fame and promoting things.
Yeah.
And celebrating is covered by the Walk of Fame. We also have an education program. That's another part of the preserve and promote, in which we work, and we're working next year with 4 of Richmond's elementary schools to have the kids in the 1st through 3rd grade, depending on what the different schools want to do. They have a curriculum that teaches them about Richmond's industrial history as well as the musical history. And it's not just book learning, it is, they get to play instruments, they get to go down to the gorge and see the buildings, they can go to the Gennett Mansion, they've done that in the past. There's just an awful lot that the foundation is doing. I mentioned the Gennett Mansion. We have a series now of what was referred to as Third Fridays. And that's an opportunity for people to go and listen to good jazz. And the woman who organizes this, our president, Betty Blunk, likes to talk about encouraging people to dance and have fun. And so you're able to have a meal and then listen to the music for a couple hours. A different kind of music than you usually find around town.
Sounds like a nice cultural outlet. for folks in the community.
Absolutely, and it's what I'm impressed with is the real variety of music that the Starr Gennett Foundation sponsors in terms of live performances. We had a gospel concert this summer, it's not past yet, and the jazz concerts that we do. The Walk of Fame frequently features country music stars and blues singers. And of course, this fall, we have Deacon Jones, Richmond High School graduate, internationally famous blues organist. And people need to come back just to welcome back a native son, but also to enjoy some basically internationally significant music. And we have Jeff Hamilton and the Jeff Hamilton Trio coming back, and that's on Friday the 12th. Deacon's on Saturday the 13th of September, this coming month.
Yes.
And of course, Jeff Hamilton is a graduate of Richmond High School. The accompanist with his group for Diana Krall for many years, and is also one of the best drummers in the world. And you know, this is an ongoing characteristic of Richmond. I mean, we continue to produce these significant musicians. Harold Jones, who is Deacon Jones's brother, brought up in Richmond, is the drummer for Tony Bennett, has been for many years. So, you know, there's others. Carol Lou Woodward, who performs locally in many, many different varieties. She's a wonderful pianist. Anyway.
Well, I know we
goes
could go on
Yep,
and on about the
yep,
fabulous
yep.
music history and current musicians, but we're out of time. And I'd like for
Already?
you to share with folks, if they would like to support the foundation financially, how can they do that?
Contact the office, Starr Gennett Foundation. That is 962-2860. And I want to say that tickets for the Deacon Jones show and the Jeff Hamilton show are available at various places, but Earlham College and the Wayne County Foundation, as well as the Starr Gennett Foundation, and probably at the Tourism Bureau as well. So people can acquire tickets there, but they can call the office at 962-2860. I have to say that I really appreciate the work that IU East has done in support of this year's Walk of Fame at Earlham College, and the Richmond High School Alumni Association and the Veterans Organizations are all pitching in this year to spread the activities around the community.
That's
Thank
great.
you, Rachel.
And we look forward to that event and other things coming up. So thank you.
You're very welcome. Glad to be here.
And thank you for joining us today for The Third Sector.